Welcome to the Positive Growth Doctor podcast for women. I'm your host, Dr. Christina Wilson. I created the Positive Growth Doctor after years of dealing with societal expectations, self-doubt, and perfectionism. I leveraged my 30 years of experience as a positive psychologist to address limiting beliefs and gain clarity to build confidence and navigate obstacles to achieve a healthier well-being. I knew that pain all too well, so I empower women to achieve confidence and live a positive-centered life. Subscribe to the podcast and check out the earlier episodes so you don't miss a thing. And let's get to it. Welcome to the Positive Growth Doctor podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Christina Wilson. You worked really hard. You got good grades, you finished college, and you're working in your field. You have a seat at the table, as they say. So why is it that you feel like you don't belong? That you're not enough? Or maybe even an imposter? You know, that uncertainty, second guessing that leads to anxiety, self-doubt, ongoing entanglement with negative thought loops over and over again. That's what I'm talking about. Now, in this episode, we explore how women can work really hard to get where they are, but feel like something is missing or get bogged down in the feelings of uncertainty and doubt. And I give you strategies to adapt well in the face of adversity and achieve higher well-being. The well-being that you deserve. So find the full transcript for this episode on your favorite podcast app and share the podcast with other women so they could grow on their life journey as well. And a big way to do this, because, this is a newer podcast and we are trying to grow. So leave a review, 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, because that really puts it out there in front of other women and furthers our reach. I appreciate you. Let's think about the origin of self-doubt in successful women from challenging upbringing. Now, some of my earlier memories are of discord between my parents. My last memory of my parents being together was of me and my mom traveling from Florida to Illinois in the middle of the night on a Greyhound when I was just 5 years old. This was in the 70s, so, people didn't get divorced. It wasn't like it's very different today. So very unusual. And my mom started selling things when we were still in Florida, so she could afford the ticket. And as quickly as she would sell something, my dad, who was addicted to pills, would use that money and to buy drugs. Until finally my mom just called my grandpa and told him what was going on, and he sent the money for the ticket. And I remembered that trip well, because I remember I was wearing this big red shirt. It's just a little bitty thing. I was only 5. And I could smell the smells of the butt as it was just yesterday. My mom called it a new adventure. But all I knew was that my daddy was, and I didn't have the ability to even understand really what was happening at the time. And she worked 2 or 3 jobs for the next 10 years just to support us. And she actually tried nursing school, but it was just, she was really unable to do it all. I mean, most people during that time were. That was a lot. And she instilled in me the importance of getting a college degree. And after all, I mean, we had learned that you have to prepare for anything in life, right? And after years of study and like $250,000 in debt, I did just that. Does any of this sound familiar to you? I worked so hard and I'm neurodivergent, so I had to put forth more effort at learning the material because I learned differently. Okay. And I didn't have the study skill initially as I entered college because growing up, my teachers just assumed that I was stupid and lazy, because they didn't know how to approach neurodivergence. They didn't even know what that was. And sadly, many of them didn't care given the small town politics. I was on my own, while my mom was working to put food on the table. And I had to figure it out. And thankfully, I was smart enough to where I could pass the test without, doing the homework because it was going to help me with the homework, right? You know, but then it was just so different in college. And I was like this phoenix rising from the ashes. For the first time, people saw me and they recognized I brought to the table. And I was chosen from the brightest student to conduct research in undergrad. And I was always the last pick in dodgeball just years prior. Go figure. And I graduated with honor. And by the time I was 23 years old, I was a clinical director. I had a lot of responsibility and power. Yep. My ship had come in. I was part of an elite team of clinicians dodging bullets, literally, and have the power of getting judges to sign off on papers. So why was I so anxious? Thinking wasn't doing enough. Why? By this time I was a full force perfectionist, in all that I was doing, everything. And that started in grad school where I didn't accept anything less than an A. And I remember a time in my master's program, I, um, brought it to my professor's attention that he had miscalculated my grade. And it was an A, it wasn't an A minus. And he was disturbed by this, but said, not for the same reasons that I was disturbed. But, he said to me, Christina, there are worse things in the world than an A minus. But I did remind him that his mistake did impact my GPA. All my life, I compared myself with others. And of course, everyone was comparing me, right? Because that's the way it is. And as females, the comparison trap is real for every single one of us, regardless of our upbringing. And when you grow up with serious adversity, you are catapulted to the very top of a very high mountain of comparison already overflowing with society's unreasonable expectations on females. And that is a problem. So strategies that help women to increase awareness and reclaim their power when they feel less than, what we're going to focus on. So I had a job in my, I don't know, maybe early 30s, something. It was highly stressful. And I was working in the mental health field, which was already stressful, right? You hear a lot of things, and clinicians often have PTSD, just things that they hear every day. It's heavy. It's a lot. But we do it because we love serving other people and helping them get to the next level and to feel better. And this agency was so poorly run by people that they just didn't understand the people that we were serving, those who were running the place. They didn't understand. In fact, those in charge didn't even understand mental health. They were on this, and they were terrible managers on top of that. Horrible. And I had this 30-minute drive to work every day. And I remember that I would always get stopped by this train, and it would just literally stop on the tracks. And I'm like, got to be kidding. So then it prolonged the time. And every morning I would catch myself ruminating and stressing out about the day to come. I was catching myself doing. And by doing so, I felt like I had some control over the possible events of the day. How I was going to counteract this or get around, this negativity, that negativity. And I am a really optimistic person, and I like to find joy where I can. That's just who I am. And this was making me miserable. And I did not like it one bit. And it had lasted for some time. So one day I had enough. And I switched gears. And I flipped the script that I had every morning. And here is what I did. I'm going to share this with you because I'll tell you, it made an incredible difference. I refused to go down that road of negativity. That was the first thing I did. I said, enough is enough. And if I ever so slightly started to veer into that direction in my mind, I regrouped and got back on track. I wasn't going to let that happen. I was that tired of it. And usually you are to that point where it's like, I can't take anymore. The second thing is I reminded myself who I was every single morning on that drive to work. I am the daughter of a king who was not put on this earth to be dragged down, okay, while I was serving and helping others who were already struggling. They didn't need my negative energy on top of that. And, that's not what God wants for us. And I reminded myself of that every single day. And what others thought of me, that did not matter. I chose not to look up and hang on to that. That no longer mattered. I worked really hard to be where I was in my profession. And I was really good at it. And nothing was getting in my way of helping these people. That was a choice. So number 2, I made that choice and I reminded myself who I am. And the third was I had to change the script. I had to change it by using affirmation. I know sometimes affirmations sound really foo-foo and all that, but when you claim it, it makes a difference. Gotta claim it. And I would say, I'm going to work to serve others today. And I love serving others. The truth. I will be appreciated for my effort. The management supervisors will see my contribution. And they're going to support me. And I am more than capable. I am strong. And I will embrace. I triumph and I misstep. Because those are opportunities to learn. Bring joy to, because it's an opportunity for me to learn, and I love to learn. So what did all of this do? Well, it changed my mindset. It changed my mindset going onto the battlefield, right? A highly negative, toxic place. It prepared me every day. Why? Well, it's all in your mind. It starts in your mind, right? And sometimes people say, oh, it's all in your head. Well, it kind of is on some level. You don't have to say, you don't have to say something for others around you to feel your vibe. So in my mind was so much negativity in the morning, and I was getting off that vibe, and I hadn't even said a word. Okay? It's like it's coming out of your pores somehow. Okay? By internally regulating my state, my state of being, by internally regulating my state of being before even setting foot in that place, I changed unspoken vibe. And they were so much more, or they were so much less negative with me. And they focused their negative energy onto others. So who weren't, quite where I was before there, right? And the fact that I had changed the tide with a priming on the way to work, pretty amazing. I had that aha moment. I was like, well, look at that. That's what I was hoping to achieve, but I did day after day. And what a weight that had lifted, and recognized I do have it. And, I do have so much to give. And I believed that things would change in my life. And it did. In fact, I met my husband later on that year, and I got married. We had a baby soon after that 2 doctors said I would never have. So much had changed in my life by engaging in that every single morning. Look at what you have achieved. Okay, think about that for a minute. Think about everything you have achieved already. You deserve it. You deserve to enjoy it. And you can enjoy it. Let's do this together. So I'm building a Facebook group that I mentioned before, and it's for women, and it's called the Women's Empowerment Group. And I actually included the link to the group in the transcript. I have big plans for this group as it grows. It's really important to grow the group. So I have big plans for whenever it does get bigger and bigger. And I'm really excited about it because I love sharing joy and building up other women. That for me is where it's, the goal is for women to come together and learn and increase a healthy well-being and support one another along the way. So I hope this has helped, and I look forward to our time again next week. I'll see you then.
Thanks for listening to the Positive Growth Doctor podcast. Be sure to leave a review and tell other women about the podcast. Let's support one another. Find the full transcript for this episode on your favorite podcast app. Watch the podcast on the Positive Growth Doctor YouTube channel and learn more at thepositivegrowthdoctor.com. And be assured, you are not alone on your journey